Charger Dude 95 on hand. Welcome back to the NCAA Football 14 all-time programs tournament. We had put 24 schools in a single elimination format. Only 8 of the greatest programs in college football remain. We are trying to determine what is the greatest NCAA team of all time. And it really comes down to this. With some of the juggernauts still to go, we begin in the Fiesta Bowl presented by Tostitos in Glendale, Arizona. Sluggish start for both offenses here from Glendale, yet Troy Smith catches fire after consecutive pass completions to wide receiver Michael Jenkins, who reeled in the Holy Buckeye in 2002 in their national championship campaign. Not from Troy Smith, but the quarterback does find 1955 Heisman Trophy winner Howard Cassidy to give the Buckeyes the lead by 4 at the half. As we take a look at the numbers, there hasn't been much offense to speak of. Ohio State played slightly better, but it was a hotly contested game going into the third quarter. But the Tigers, who had a brutal 3 for 11 performance on third down, were stopped as Wendell Davis was knocked out of bounds by Bradley Roby, who was incredible in the game. Then Troy Smith takes over. Here is a touchdown scamper from just outside the red zone, and then he does it yet again inside the red zone this time. And to put this game away in the fourth quarter against the Tigers, who had a legendary defense going into this game, that is a touchdown throw to the greatest receiver by way of yards and touchdowns in the history of the school. 4th and 5 conversion here to Skylar Green of the Tigers. And then LSU on a 1st and 10 would be denied by future NFL Hall of Famer Bill Willis. And on 3rd and 19, they are denied yet again with the tackle from Quinn Pitcock. Ohio State will represent the NCAA Tournament Final Four. What a performance from Troy Smith. The Buckeyes dismantle yet another opponent. They shut out Georgia Tech a week ago, and in a drubbing against LSU, have knocked them out 28-3. What a performance by Ohio State cornerback Bradley Roby in a 25-point Buckeye win. Number 11 Penn State battles number 2 Notre Dame in the Russell Athletic Bowl in Orlando, Florida. The lowest remaining seed in this tournament after the loss from LSU is number 11 Penn State. After Notre Dame takes a 3-0 lead late in the first half, Nittany Lion tailback Larry Johnson hurdles across the marker to convert the first of 3 fourth downs for Penn State. This catch from Ted Kwolek puts them in the red zone, but then Kerry Collins is sacked, and they are forced to settle for a field goal. Thus, we are tied going into the half of an overcast afternoon in Central Florida at 3-3. In the second half, Joe Montana finds a favored target, future Cardinal wide receiver Michael Floyd. And they would cap this one off with future Packer great Paul Hornung punching it in from just over a yard out. And Notre Dame enjoys a 10-3 lead over Penn State less than 2 minutes into the third quarter. Penn State would respond with a 3-and-out with this catch from Deion Butler. Then Montana, who has shown some running ability throughout the course of this tournament, scampers across the line and then finds George Jipp. Here's a good time for me to talk about his story, and it is not only great but also tragic. He is the first ever player in the history of Notre Dame, this was back in 1920, to earn All-American honors. George Jipp, the running back, he makes the catch right here. And after Jipp was regarded an All-American, 2 weeks after it, that is all, he dies of strep throat and pneumonia after he garners the first ever award. Due to a lack of treatments and the sort of medicine that we are available to in today's present age, over 100 years later, to have that sort of thing happen to such a great football player is tragic to think what exactly he could have done in the NFL. But certainly George Jipp was a motivating factor in Notre Dame going on the type of run that they did, as the Fighting Irish are regarded as the second greatest program of all time. And it all started with such an incredible performance throughout the 1920 year by George Jipp. Tragic, and we certainly have condolences out throughout the course of all of the people that he had positively affected throughout his life. 13-3 Notre Dame leads here in the fourth quarter. Penn State, their chances of a comeback felt as though it was down to this drive, and Allen Robinson puts them right back in the game. and the pesky Nittany Lions, who wanted a walk-off a week ago against Wisconsin. They've got Notre Dame on the ropes, but there's George Jip again. First down for the Jipper, and Notre Dame, up by a field goal, could all but win the game with a score. This catch from Golden Tate III, future Seattle Seahawk, puts them into the red zone, but on 3rd and 10, Jip would be denied, short of the marker by excellent defensive end Aaron Maben. 16-10, the Fighting Irish lead. Kerry Collins, who is at a wonderful tournament, guides this potential go-ahead scoring drive. They need about 60 yards from that catch to Kyle Brady. Then there's Ted Quallen with a 13-yard completion. 3rd and long. Penn State goes deep yet again. There's number 10 for the Nittany Lions, rather 30, Jordan Norwood. And on a 3rd and goal, 43 seconds to go in the game, Collins completes the pass to Brady. 4th and goal. This is for the season for the Nittany Lions. If they win, they take on Ohio State, the very school that dismantled LSU earlier today. With a loss, this would be Notre Dame's opportunity for the Final Four, with an opponent to be determined. It's a touchdown for Quallen. A 4-yard score from Kerry Collins wins it at the moment for Penn State. There still is some time left for the Fighting Irish, and this absolutely baffles me beyond belief. George Jip reels in this pass, so you've got to believe that they're going to quickly take a snap, try and orchestrate a throw to the sideline. No, they're going to run out all but the final 2 seconds of the game. That was 30 seconds of them just standing around. This is a completion to Ragib Ismail, and this one is over. And Penn State's, whether it is by walk-off a week ago or by some computer malfunction this week, the Nittany Lions are moving on. Kerry Collins completes 30 of 43 throws against that vaunted defense that hammered Wisconsin a week ago. Our final score here from Orlando is 17-16. The Nittany Lions are winners and will play Ohio State next weekend. In terms of producing NFL talent, there seems to be no two greater schools than Alabama and Miami. One of the 9 future NFL Hall of Famers reels in this 51-yard reception. It is future Dallas Cowboy great Michael Irvin. He leaps over Kevin Jackson and O'Shawn Clinton-Dix and gives Miami the lead as they would cap it off with a Hurricane field goal. Then Namath goes long, and he would be picked off by the man, rest in peace, Sean Taylor of the Hurricanes, who would bring it back to the 37 to continue what was a paltry start for the Crimson Tide. Kozar wouldn't take long to respond as he launches to Reggie Wayne for a 66-yard touchdown, and late in the first quarter here, it is a 10-0 lead for the Miami Hurricanes in the Capital One Bowl. Joe Namath would take matters into his own hands after the sluggish start as he scampers outside. Then to begin the second quarter, he finds one of the most underrated receivers of all time in future Packer great Don Hudson for this catch, and then Amari Cooper from 31 yards out, and the Tide are back in the game. And for those who are fans of offense, there was plenty of it after Namath responds. Here's Willie Smith, who had a great performance a week ago in their win over Michigan in the Hawaii Bowl. There's Irvin for 13 yards. And then off platform, this is Kozar for the lead out to Willie Smith. The two teams combined for 765 yards from scrimmage. 17-10 Miami leads. If you thought that Alabama would not come back before halftime, you would be sadly mistaken. 13-yard completion here to Amari Cooper. Then Namath, who is pressured by 7 Hurricane defenders, still completes out to Cooper and then launches the game-tying touchdown to Ray Perkins. You could throw anybody out there. Alabama was flourishing in the passing game, but ironically, Miami had more passing yards. But the two teams were racking up the yards and the points. Miami comes right out of the locker room with another incredible drive, led by future Brown greats Bernie Kozar. He finds Santana Moss for a gain of 28. The tackle was made there by Clinton-Dix. And then McGahee gives Miami the lead. That was a 2.5-minute long drive in the third quarter. Mind you, there's no accelerated clock. It was a long possession. Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram gains a couple here, and then Namath finds Julio Jones there. He is the greatest receiver of all time in terms of yards per game. Yes, that's Julio Jones. And then there's a touchdown to Don Hudson. I have to disclose to you now, I'm a pretty big Alabama fan, so I may sound a little biased, But, I mean, more yards per game than anybody in NFL history? Yeah, that's Julio Jones, and we got him. All right, Ozzie Newsome gains 32 to put Alabama deep into Miami territory. Then this is what they did Alabama when they won their 2015 national championship. Derrick Henry in the second half of so many games. On second and goal, Ray Lewis was the unfortunate player that gets run over by Derrick Henry here. And it seems that if you are going to beat the vaunted Miami Hurricanes, the player to beat is Ray Lewis. Derek Thomas, one of the most decorated sack artists of all time, makes the stop here. After Alabama responds with a punt themselves, the Hurricanes have a shot down 7. But you would think that they would test the deep secondary of Alabama. Instead, they go with a screen. That's a loss of 7. Then on 4th and 11, Kozar is picked off by Tommy Wilcox, the 1981 All-American, intercepts Kozar. Alabama needs a yard to win the game, and they do. First down to Mark Ingram. And the Crimson Tide, after 2 gut-wrenching wins, are on to the NCAA Final Four. Joe Namath played well once more against the excellent Miami Hurricanes. So Alabama now will play the winner of Oklahoma and USC in the NCAA Final Four. Well, the aforementioned USC and Oklahoma are 2 of the greatest programs in the history of college football. Both have won 7 national championships and compete here at the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl for a trip into the NCAA Final Four to take on the aforementioned Crimson Tide. After an excellent start to this USC drive, Lynn Swann coughs up the ball, and 2000 consensus All-American J.T. Thatcher recovers for the Sooners. And Oklahoma's opening drive looks promising as well, but they are denied with a sack from number 86, USC defensive end Sean Cody. A 3-0 lead for Oklahoma would since be matched by the Trojans before Mayfield goes long to 2-time All-American Ryan Broyles of the Sooners. And Oklahoma leads at the half, despite both teams having nearly the same amount of yards. But it would be a far different story since the halftime break. In fact, the 2 schools would combine for 840 yards from scrimmage. Let's not forget, there are 68 All-Americans for Oklahoma, and there is almost that many for USC as well. Mike Williams reels it in here for a gain of 49. That leads to a touchdown to tie it from the Juice and O.J. Simpson. But I was just going to say how many All-Americans are on defense. It was amazing how these 2 offenses ripped them to shreds. Royals played well throughout the game, but here's Adrian Peterson, the Sooner great, to put them into the red zone. Then on 3rd down and 6, Baker Mayfield is denied as his throw short of the marker to running back Billy Sims. 16-13 late in the 3rd quarter for the Sooners, but the Trojans tie it yet again. Mayfield finds one of his favorite targets in Ryan Broyles, who won the All-American Awards in 2010 and 2011. There's future Eagle great and the leading receiver in the DSFL2 by way of touchdowns in Tommy McDonald. 3rd and goal, the Sooners do not elect to win the game with a field goal. Instead, they go to the run from Samaje Perine. We're headed to overtime. It shouldn't have been overtime. Oklahoma was in position to win the game. After both teams scored touchdowns in the first 2 overtime periods, we're in the 3rd overtime, and USC marches, but then Leinart throws away this 2nd down pass, and then Matt Leinart throws away this 3rd down pass, not giving his receivers a chance to even get open with those throwaways. So the Trojans settle for a field goal and take a 33-30 lead. Oklahoma wins it in the 3rd overtime with a touchdown. They'll begin with a running back screen. There's Peterson for a gain of 5. Inside handoff here to Billy Sims. He spins inside the 10. Then Baker Mayfield of the Sooners wins the game as he fires a slant just over the goal line to the man who has made so many big plays throughout this tournament, and Ryan Broyles. The Sooners, led by head coach Barry Switzer, and a team with 48 conference crowns, which is the most in the history of college football, along with 7 national championships, 68 All-Americans. One of them is Baker Mayfield, who threw 4 touchdowns in the game. Oklahoma is moving on to play Alabama for the NCAA Final Four. That also is the one matchup with Ohio State taking on Penn State in the other. That is a Big Ten rivalry matchup in the Final Four next week. The greatest program of all time will be determined shortly.